As a corporate recruiter, one of my favorite ways to find job candidates is through LinkedIn. So if you're not on the platform for whatever reason, you're missing out on job opportunities. And in this video, I'm going to break down how I use the LinkedIn platform to find candidates and then also some ways that you can increase your visibility on the platform. But before we get into that, if you're interested in more career-related content just like this directly from a corporate recruiter, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And I'm also pulling a lot of these tips and techniques from my course, Unlocking LinkedIn. So if you're somebody that is struggling with your LinkedIn game and want to know how to use it from a job search perspective, check the course out. It goes into a ton more detail. I actually walk you through behind the scenes how recruiters use the platform to find candidates just like you. So if you want to pull up higher in those search results, check out Unlocking LinkedIn for the job seeker. So it's important to note that there are two primary ways that recruiters use LinkedIn to find job candidates. The first being the open job post. And how it works on the back end is when a recruiter is assigned a new job, they will typically go into their applicant tracking system and they'll upload the job posting. They'll put in all the details that they need. They'll tweak the job description and they'll make it turn into a pretty ad. And most applicant tracking systems are integrated with the LinkedIn platform. So they'll hit the submit button and publish the job on their corporate website. And then it automatically gets published over to the LinkedIn platform. And the thing is, a lot of these job postings come directly into their applicant tracking systems. So the recruiter is actually not spending all that much time on the LinkedIn platform to actually look at the candidates who are what I would call an inbound applicant. In other words, they are applying for the job by clicking on the job application. Another thing is recruiters are incentivized on how quickly they fill these jobs through metrics called the time to fill. The time to fill is typically measured in the time that a job is opened until the time that an offer is accepted on the role. And there's a clock that starts ticking. And as soon as the recruiter starts working on it, their goal is to try to get 3 to 5 qualified candidates, and qualified being the key word here, into the interview process as quickly as they can so that they can submit them to the hiring teams. And then they move off to the other roles that they're working on. The problem with the inbound applicants is, because so many people apply to jobs that are not qualified for, if a recruiter waited around solely for inbound applications, hoping that there was a person who matched all the criteria that they were looking for, they're likely not going to fill too many roles in the allocated time that they have for each job. In other words, that time to fill metric. Yes, employers can be pretty picky, and I know it can be frustrating, but nonetheless, recruiters are trying to find candidates that align reasonably closely with the job. Therefore, they also use LinkedIn in a second major way, and that's by going and doing direct sourcing. And that means that they're going onto the back end of LinkedIn using a plugin or a website called LinkedIn Recruiter, which is not accessible by the public. You have to have a special license to get in there. And they're able to look at a lot of different filtering options to find the right candidates down to an extreme level of precision. So that means if you don't have the things that they're matching on your profile, you're likely never going to pull up in those search results. So that's the first thing that I want to cover is you have to have a profile on the platform in order to get discovered. So if you're somebody that has been really reluctant for whatever reason, you have no use for the whole social media side of it, you're kind of annoyed at people and what they post on there, you don't have to really visit that side of LinkedIn if you don't want to. Just kind of ignore it, go directly into your profile, but just make sure that you're optimizing it. Make sure that you put a heading in, make sure that you're putting in the About Me section, make sure you're filling it out as reasonably completely as you can, because this is a chance for you to try to get the right keywords in there. And little hint here, go and check the job postings. See what the market is looking for that job type and make sure that you get the right keywords reasonably in your profile. The second thing I would do is make sure that you're adding in skills. Go in and add the skills in every possible place that you can put them. You can add them into the jobs themselves and you can add them into the dedicated skills section. And if it's me, I'm going to put them in both places. The more keywords you have, the better chances you are to hit the one that recruiter happens to be searching for that day. Next, I would recommend that you use a profile picture. And I know some people have some heartburn about this. They don't like the way that they look, or they feel that their profile picture could get them discriminated against on some level. And I think that there is some validity to that concern. I understand it. However, it's part of our branding package to the employer. So if you feel comfortable enough, I would actually recommend that you do create a simple profile picture, and it should be very clean. It should not be cropped out of like a group photo. I see a lot of people using their wedding photos and then they crop themselves out, and it's really obvious that it's a wedding photo because the guys will often have a flower on the lapel, and realistically, we don't wear those unless we're in a wedding. But the main thing is to use a neutral background. If you have an iPhone, you can just take one into a clean wall somewhere in your house. But not having a professional profile picture shouldn't be a barrier of entry for you, given that it's relatively easy to get a decently high quality image yourself. Ultimately, with a profile picture, it does establish a higher degree of trust and connection with the candidate and vice versa. If a recruiter reached out to you who didn't have anything on their profile, didn't have a profile picture, you would probably look at them as relatively scammy or spammy. Same thing applies. So just use your best judgment on what you should post there. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you're setting it up so that recruiters can actually find your profile. Nothing is more maddening than us searching through profiles on the back end and finding the perfect candidate, but then they have it set so that people outside the organization, or specifically recruiters, cannot reach out to them, can't send a note to them at all. And listen, I know some people get annoyed because people reaching out to them interrupts their day, but ultimately, if your dream job opportunity comes up and the recruiter for an alpha company can't reach out to you, you're never going to know what you're missing because you'll never know what you don't know. It's better to have the ability to say no thank you and maybe deal with a few spam messages than it is to miss out on an opportunity that might be perfect for you. And while you're at it, you may also want to indicate that you're open to new opportunities. Now, you don't have to put the banner on your front profile picture. I know this is a big question. Should I include the green banner that tells everybody that I am looking for new opportunities? And me personally, I don't use it if I'm looking for a new opportunity because it's not going to really impact a recruiter's search on the back end. In fact, there's not really a clean way for us to even tell that you have that. Instead, we're going to find you other ways. And one of those settings on the back end is if you indicate that you're open to new opportunities. Because when you indicate that, you actually show up in a different bucket of candidates on the back end, and we can filter and find you more easily. And a recruiter is more likely to reach out to somebody who is open to new opportunities rather than convincing somebody who is perfectly content in their current job to try to consider a new opportunity. So we may as well reach out to that group of candidates first if you meet the requirements of the position closely. But what we're not doing is going onto the front end of LinkedIn and looking for banners. So it's probably not going to help you, but it's not going to hurt you either. So use your judgment if you want that branding on your personal LinkedIn page, but for the recruiter's sake, it's not something that we'll ever see. And here's the deal. Even if you don't have that banner up, it's still not going to stop me from contacting you. If you match the requirements of the position that I'm recruiting, especially if it's a hard to fill job for me, I'm going to reach out to you regardless of whether you're open to new opportunities or you're not, because there's no reason for me not to do that. So ultimately, the choice is yours if you want the banner to show up in your branding towards your network. But as far as recruiters are concerned, we really don't care either way. Next, if you're open to relocation, and this is becoming more and more common with companies forcing people back into the office more frequently, make sure that you indicate it and also indicate some of the areas that you may be willing to relocate to. And I would add as many locations as you realistically are willing to move to, because it opens up our candidate pools considerably. So if you're trying to relocate to a certain area, make sure that you put that in the back end settings. Because who knows, a recruiter may be doing a search and you have a unique skill set that they're looking for, and they might send you an in-mail just because you have that setting. And while you're at it, you may as well indicate what it is that you are looking for in your profile very clearly, whether it's in your heading, whether it's in your About Me section. If you're being reached out to for roles that are just not a good fit for you, tell everybody what it is that you are looking for. So if you're looking for director and promotional roles for yourself and not looking for junior roles, clearly indicate that you're seeking director level roles and above. And yeah, you'll probably still get some offshore recruiters with scammy opportunities that you're not interested in, but it might cut down on some of the jobs that you're completely overqualified for. Another tip when you're doing active job search is to make sure that you're setting alerts so that you're being an early applicant, because that's a really important part of the luck that we can create on the platform. But also make sure that you search for hashtags occasionally in the search bar. It's an underutilized tip to find jobs that have been posted very recently, and you might actually find a hiring manager or a direct recruiter who's posting it. And to that end, if you want to show up higher in search results, LinkedIn actually does reward people who use the platform and use it consistently. So what that means is people who are updating their profile frequently, people who are posting and commenting, actually tend to show up higher in search results than people who are completely inactive and are just simply lurking. So if it was me, I would make it a habit to make at least one change to my profile a week and try to comment on a couple of posts to just be an active participant on the platform. LinkedIn will reward you and you're likely to get more attention on your profile. I have seen this firsthand with my own profile results. And be sure to check your analytics frequently because they can show you if your profile is actually being seen and if it's being seen by the right people. And that's a good way to know whether or not your LinkedIn profile is actually working for you or if you're relatively invisible to recruiters and to other people on the platform. Finally, you want to make sure that you are building networks consistently. This is not something that you do only when you're looking for jobs. Most people hopelessly neglect their networking and they don't know how to use the tool to their advantage. To me, this is the number one benefit of using LinkedIn. It's the networking piece. The job search stuff is fine, but how you can really unlock the power of the platform is to use the networking to your advantage. And there's a whole list of things that you can be doing there. And I cover that in the Unlocking LinkedIn course. Listen, I know that a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth about using the LinkedIn platform for a lot of the social media side of things. And you can clean up your feed. You can block accounts who post stuff that you don't like to see. You can curate your content, so to speak, to make it a more palpable experience. But if you implement some of these things that I've given you suggestions on today, I think that you'll find the LinkedIn platform to be a much more pleasant place to spend time, and you'll likely find more job opportunities that way as well. And while you're at it, if you want even more job search tips and tricks, I do spend a lot of time on LinkedIn myself. I practice what I preach, and I post nearly every single day. So you can find me and follow me in the link that I'll leave in the video description below. Anyway, I'm here to help support you in your job search. So if you need more help, check out my website, alifeafterlayoff.com. As always, I appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next one.